Namaskar dosto. Welcome to the second season of Musical Musings. The last season was highly appreciated and I was blessed and encouraged by all of you with your presence in all my sessions. So, since we are back in the pandemic time, I thought that uh, I should restart this uh, series so that we can meet and listen to many great musicians and their musical thoughts and their talim and their experience, because the more and more we document these things, it would be helpful for the future generations also. So with that intention, I have restarted the Musical Musings series. And when I thought of starting the second season, uh, the only name that came to my mind to inaugurate this season was Pt.Nayan Ghosh ji. My association with Pandit ji is for almost a decade now, and I have been privileged to receive his blessings many times. So, without much of me talking, I will I would like to invite Pandit Nayan ji to this session to share his musical thoughts. Namaste Nayan ji.
Namaste, Dhananjay. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Welcome to Musical Musings, and I thank you for kindly accepting my invitation and participating in today's interaction.
Thank you. I'm very privileged because you have been doing a wonderful series for a long time, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And you know,
Thank you.
whatever, share my thoughts and experiences with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nayan ji, that's really great of you, because uh, it's very difficult to introduce Nayan ji, because the kind of knowledge he has, the mastery he has over two instruments, which is a very, very, very rare combination, and a great guru. Uh, so it's very difficult to introduce Nayanji. So I would start my session with a question, uh, that you were born into a family. Uh, your father, Pandit Nikhil Ghosh ji, I mean, considered as one of the icons that Hindustani classical music has seen, uh, and your mother Usha Ghosh ji. So, can you please tell us that being born into a family where I think there is nothing but music, so how was your initial talim and how it started, how you got interested into music?
Thank you. To begin with, I should say that to be born in a family of musicians where the environment is constantly charged with music is a matter of great blessing, a matter of great fortune. And very few people get that kind of a luck in their life to be born that way, you know. So in my family, music was so much prevailing in the atmosphere, in the environment constantly. My um, being born and the gradual growing up, it was very, very natural to imbibe the musical elements, the musical qualities, um, the fundamentals. It just came too easily, and just like fish taking to water. Um, so I mean, it shouldn't be surprising. If it wasn't so, then it's a different matter. Then it's a matter of surprise.
True.
But one thing is the genetic factor, because music has been there in my family for quite a few generations. I happen to be the sixth generation, at
Oh,
least if we go back uh, and try to trace it, it comes around sixth. But before that, whether my ancestors were musicians or not, I'm not too sure. But at least five generations before me, I know that they were musicians. I know their names and what they did, at least five generations. That way, since childhood, my father made me memorize the names of my ancestors up to 24 or 25 generations.
oh,
Names of my ancestors. And, well, that's another story. But my grandfather, to start with, my great grandfather, Harakumar Ghosh, was a Dhrupad singer and a Pakhawaj player, but
oh,
not professional, because in those days in Bengal, eastern Bengal, uh, to be a musician, to take music as a career was not really appreciated in society. Music was very much kind of put aside in society, and musicians were looked down upon. So my grandfather and his colleague musicians, they normally sang and performed in a temple very close to their home in East Bengal. My ancestral town or city is called Barisal, which is about 100 200 kilometers south of Dhaka, East Bengal. So, and my grandfather was Akshay Kumar Ghosh, who worked uh, in some government department, but spent all his spare time with sitar. And he had learned from two very great gurus. Uh, Bhagwan Chandra Das, who was one of the greatest sitar gurus of all United Bengal, entire Bengal,
oh,
in those days, most respected figure. And also a little bit from his guru, whose name was Qasim Ali Khan Rababiye, who was the second last descendant of Tansen from the son's line.
oh.
Tansen's lineage comes down in two lines, so daughter's line and son's line.
Sounds like
Yeah. So the
Bilas
second
Khan.
last, yeah, yeah. And in that line, in that
Hmm.
lineage, Qasim Ali Khan was the second last. The last was Muhammad Ali Khan Rabawiya. And my grandfather learned a little bit from him also. And but I never saw my grandfather, because my father himself was about 10 years old when my grandfather passed away.
Oh,
So but my father had by that time learned a good bit of vocal music, and then he learned a little sitar from his older brother also, Pannalal Ghoshji, my uncle, known as the father of Hindustani flute.
flute.
So Panna Babu used to play the sitar also pretty well as a youngster. And tabla came very naturally to my father, probably because my great grandfather was a Pakhawaj player. However, that's the family background. And then, of course, what, since my father settled down in Bombay, you know, since much before I was born, uh, his interactions with great musicians, his interactions with not only his colleagues, his contemporaries, Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji, Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, Vilayat Khan Sahab, and all of them, but Amir Khan Sahab also, but also his interactions with one generation older musicians was very, very close and very active, like Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab, Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan Sahab, Ishaq Khan Sahab, Ayaz Khan Sahab, Vilayat Hussain Khan Sahab, all these people, Omkarnath Thakur ji,
Wow.
Kesar Bhai, Siddheshwari Devi, and so
Devi ji.
many others, so many, yeah,
Wow.
many musicians. So his interaction was so active since he was a tabla player, he accompanied all of them. And
Wow.
so listening to all these great masters, and now I should especially refer to my father's three tabla gurus. My father also was a good vocalist, but tabla gurus, his first guru was Gurudev Gyan Prakash Ghosh, with whom we were associated, our whole family, as long as he lived. He passed away in 1998, not very long back. Till then, we were constantly in touch. And my father's second guru was Ustad Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, another great tabla
Yes.
player in the entire history of tabla, both as a composer, a performer, and as a teacher. He was an outstanding tabla player. And finally, Ustad Ahmad Jan Thirakwa Khan Sahab, the Mount Everest of tabla.
Yes.
And I happened to, since my childhood, and calling all of them the term Dadu, which means grandfather.
Grandfather.
I used to call them Dadu, yeah. And, it was so natural to play and go and
Yeah.
sit in their lap or take a pair of tabla and play with them and perform and take. So gradually, by the time I was about 12 or so, in addition to my father's constant talim, I also, Ustad Ahmad Jan Thirakwa, he took a lot of interest in shaping me,
Wow. Wow.
making me realize the importance of hard riyas, tough riyas. He made me realize the importance of that and necessity of that also. I used to do, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
sorry,
saying,
sorry, Rinayanji. Sorry to interrupt you. Just
please.
to we'll continue this discussion. There are many artists who have joined us today, so I would
Oh,
definitely would like to, uh, you know, uh, one is Pandita Meeta Nagji is here. She has conveyed her.
wonderful.
Uh, then my father has welcomed you.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and Sahana Banerjee, Sahana ji, she is
Yes,
there. And
wonderful.
yeah, Ravindra Katoti ji, harmonium.
Ah,
Then Purnima Bhatt Kulkarni, very good vocalist from Bangalore. She is
oh,
here.
wonderful.
Yeah, many artists and many of your students have joined us today. Um,
Okay.
uh, I would like to ask you one thing because what I have read about Tirukwa Khan Sahab, that he was a very strict, very strict and very serious person. So how
Yeah.
was, because since you started learning from him at a very tender age, how was your interaction with him, and was he really strict with you, or how was his talim used to be? I mean, he was very.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted you to practice for longer hours. How was it like?
Yeah. Nice question. Yeah. See, I'll tell you one thing. Let me start this way. My The main body of my talim in tabla, and of course vocal and sitar, but tabla, we are talking about tabla right now, has been from my father, and it continued as long as my father lived. That is till the time I was 38 years old. My talim under my father. However, that decade, uh, between, let's say, my age of 11 or 12 till I was 19 or 20, that was the time Thirakwa Khan Sahib lived in our home. Almost 7 to 8 years or more, almost a decade, you can say. He lived in our home. And that was a huge opportunity and a blessing to be under his shadow at an age when a child can be molded the way someone wants, So that molding age, I
Appropriate age.
found, yeah, appropriate age, I found Ustad Tariq Khan Sahab in my life. And that helped me a lot in my molding, in my understanding, in my technique, in my nikas, in my hath ka rakh rakhav, etc., etc. Everything. So Tariq Khan Sahab was a huge influence that came into my life. And how it started was, uh, of course, um, I used to play tabla since absolute childhood. I mean, that I can't even remember, because my first radio broadcast, tabla solo, was when I was about 4.5 years old, from All India Radio. And then, of course, not concerts, but constant talim, and of course, in competitions here and there, playing in school competitions, etc. That was there. But when Tariq Khan Sahab started staying with us when I was around 11 or so, 12, that's when he heard me practice in the inner room, sometimes for several hours. And he called me into his room. And I was glad. I was waiting for that. He said, "Come, take the tabla." He said, the first day, he said, "Take a pair of tabla." And sitting right face to face with him holding one pair and me on one pair. Then he said, "Learn this." And he taught me some gat and some qaida and all that. And he taught me for about 2 hours. And then he said, "Go, get this ready. Tomorrow come again and I'll teach you more," he said. So whatever I learned from him, I sat down to practice because I was so inspired, and that is something I was looking forward to. And then it became a daily feature,
Ooh.
sitting with him with a pair of tabla. And in the process, the material that I got from him was not so vast as I got from my father. It was just a fraction of it. But how to work on that material and how to uh, uh, make it uh, get a good result out of it. So he made me practice on certain tabla bowls for long times. And I have spoken about this many times on many forums.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I realized what is called bone breaking practice. And you literally feel at the let's say after an hour or so, you feel uh, a lot of pain in your arms or forearms, and certain bowls, not any bowl. And then he, within a matter of few days, maybe a matter of a week or two, he expanded my riyaz time from 1 hour to 4 hours
Ooh,
at one stretch, in the
my God.
morning before lunch, and evening before dinner another 4 hours.
Oh,
So
my
he
God.
made me practice, and he used to practice with me also. He used to
Oh,
amne samne. Yeah, our tablas were touching each other, my
oh,
pair and his pair right in front. So approximately, especially on holidays when I didn't have school, it was 8 hours. But on school days, it was 4 hours in the evening only after I returned from school. So this was a daily feature, daily. I mean, he didn't let me miss a single day. And
oh,
I didn't want to miss also. Each day I looked forward to sit with him. And initially, certain bone breaking practice bowls that he made me do used to, um, you know, now when you asked about his strictness, I'll say that yes, he always appeared as a very strict person outside, even in concert, any gatherings, everywhere, as a very, uh, you know, a person with a straight face and stoic.
yeah,
But
correct.
but In private, he was a very, very understanding, a
Oh,
very reasonable person, very humorous, which most people do not know about him. Extremely, very fine sense of humor. Anyway, but when he made me practice, because I was a child of, 11, 12, 13, you know, he used to frighten me by telling me, Rukna mat, on a certain bowl I'm playing. And he could see from my face that the pain I was really undergoing was too much. I almost felt my hand is coming off. He would say, Ruko mat. And just to scare me, once or twice he picked up the tabla hammer and said, I'll break your fingers if you stop, he said.
oh,
So that was nothing but endurance he taught me, you know,
wow, wow,
and that helped me a lot. I
wow.
mean, it helped me. That was an investment in my life
Yeah.
that is giving me rich dividends even today.
So you mean to say that more than the number of bowls or number of guts or tukdas he taught you, it's more of an endurance and what is the real practice?
Yes.
That how much you have to undergo the difficulties
Yeah. 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 That is essential.
because something you had because you had a guru in your father, so that was a very easy way of getting a guru,
Yeah.
but real endurance,
Hmm.
real जो आपको सहना चाहिए सहना,
Huh. Huh.
they are testing your patience.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. And that helped me, and especially at that age. So 11, 12, 13, थोड़ा सा मन चंचल रहता है, you know.
जी.
Uh, after, like say, if it's very painful, uh, maybe a child is wishing, I hope he'll tell me to stop now, relax,
Stop.
and go and play and come back, something like that.
Correct.
Knowing that, he purposely did that because he himself went through that same rigor at that age. He found Ustad Munir Khan Sahab when he was 12 years old.
Yes.
When his talim started, he was also 12. So that's another huge story about how his association with Ustad Munir Khan. Ustad
Mm.
Munir Khan is considered one of the greatest gurus of tabla in the history of tabla. Anyway,
Correct.
so now Tirukova Khan Sahab, what he did was, um, he of course gave me many compositions also. And there were
Mhm.
so many compositions that I kept hearing from him day in and day out, hundreds that that I had learned them just by listening.
Wow.
And there were in his repertoire, people often say that he played the same. Most of the stuff was same in all his solos. Yes, he restricted to very select compositions, but he had a huge repertoire besides that, which he didn't play on stage. He used to practice it at home, teach others. He taught me also many compositions, which he normally wouldn't play on stage. So that people should know that Ustad Ahmad Jan Tirikwa had probably 10 times more repertoire than what he used to normally play,
Play. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, in a concert.
Correct. Correct.
And well, that is yeah. And
Yeah.
another thing was, um, you know, he knew the importance. Although he was academically not literate, he had not gone to an academic school learning read and write. He didn't know how to read and write, but he knew the importance of it. And he always encouraged that I do well in my studies also, besides, of course, my parents. And also playing outside sports. He was very fond of that. Um, he used to enjoy seeing, sitting in the little lawn of a garden when I used to play road cricket, or football with my friends. He used to enjoy watching me
Oh.
play. And just sometimes, he would give a little break. He would come with his walking stick and say, okay, and holding it like a bat, and he would say, throw the ball to me.
So nice memories of with the legendary Tirukha Khan
Yeah,
Sahab.
yeah.
I would like to mention that Rupak Bhattacharya is also here with us.
Great.
One of the
Wonderful.
finest young player today we have.
Very gifted
Yeah, very
tabla.
gifted tabla player. He has a question for you,
Hmm.
uh, which I also wanted to ask actually. Uh,
Ha.
if you can share some experiences or incident of learning of from your father,
Hmm.
uh, of your father and yourself under Gyan
Under.
Babu.
Okay. Okay, nice question. Here, I'll tell you. Under my father, as I said some time back, that almost all the repertoire that I had in tabla, vocal, sitar, I have got received from my father. But as I said, Thirakwa Khansa also, I also learned quite a few things from my father's first guru, Gurudev Gyan Prakash Ghosh. Often, whenever he used to come to Bombay, he used to
Mhm.
stay with us. And there was one or two occasions when he and Ustad Thirakwa Khansa both stayed together with us
Oh,
in our home. Yeah.
wow.
So
Kya
there
baat
was wonderful interactions between them, watching both of them talk, discuss, you know. And so my learning under my father was kind of a constant or a continuous thing in different situations, not necessarily sitting with a pair of tabla. Not necessarily. Much of the talim was just by casually him saying, "Okay, now this gut. Have you heard this before?" I would, if most of them I had heard, and I had known just by listening. But sometimes some composition he would say, "If you don't know this, just isko yaad kar lo." And by God's grace, I had one great quality is anything I heard just once or twice, I used to memorize.
wow.
I didn't need someone to repeat it many times.
Mhm.
Uh, so that all my learning has been, I never wrote in my life, I never noted down any composition, not a single one.
Oh,
And so I don't have a book of all my learnings. It's all memorized because that's the traditional way of learning. Yeah,
but
yes,
yeah, Nayanda, I wanted to ask this point especially that you never used to write any compositions. I think most of the earlier generations gurus would never tell you to write. If I'm
yes.
correct.
They would strongly discourage writing. I'll tell you about the great masters. I'll tell you incidents also.
Yeah.
But now, regarding the Rupak's question,
Hmm.
so my learning from my father was in all kinds of situations. Just sitting, just sometimes traveling in maybe on a flight or in the train. Talim has used to be constant. Sometimes we whole family have gone to a nearby hill station or something, so, talim would be all the time, even during long walks. And let's say talim of ragas also, standing on the edge of near a cliff of a hill,
Uh, uh,
and watching the sunset, the pink glow of the sky, the birds returning home. So he used to teach how Sri Rag,
uh,
for example, Sri Rag, he would teach at the at the same time as enjoying the nature and the landscape, so
wow.
that there is an association later. So
Correct.
even today, whenever I play or sing Sri Rag, I remember those landscapes,
Wow.
the distant opposite mountains or the sun setting behind the mountain. Giving you an example,
Yeah, yeah.
another one was late night at a hill station close by. Also, he took us out, and there were nothing but the sky was clear, lot of stars, and he taught us Shankara, he taught
Uh,
us Adana, you know.
wow.
So that to even today, when I sing Shankara or when I play Shankara, it is I can imagine that whole experience comes right in front of me. That helps very much, you know. Singing, teaching Bhairav in the early morning when the sun is first rays of the sun fall on a mountain peak,
Correct.
you know, and experiencing Bhairav watching that mountain peak. So imagining that helps a lot, to
Yes.
understand the spirit of the rag. Same way in tabla also, he laid a great stress on also recitation.
Hmm.
That is why, in a way, in our gharana, especially Thirakwa Khan Sahab, my father, myself, we lay a lot of stress on clarity of bowls, the ucharan, pronunciation. However complicated it is, it has to come very clearly and with expression. No, just I'm giving you an example.
Yeah.
Datida, datigena tinakena datida, datida, datigena tinakena datida. This pitch variation.
Yeah.
Datida, datigena tinakena datida, kardena genekata datigena tinakata. This an example. This language also. Datida, datigena tinakena. I'll say a little slow first and then take it to its
Yeah.
natural speed. Datida, datigena tinakena datida, kardena genekat datigena tinakati kadati kadati digena dati digena da. Datida, datigena tinakena datida, kardena genekata datigena dati digena da.
क्या बात है, वाह वाह.
Just an example. Any composition, how best to express it by pitch variations, by clarity, by dynamics of volume also, soft and loud. So
Wow.
these things have been very special talim for me from my father. Now coming to Gurudev Gyan Prakash Ghoshji, he was not only my father's first guru, they were very close by in age, and they were also very good friends between themselves. So day and night listening to their talks, their discussions, their jokes, their everything, and discussing thought processes of
Wow.
great masters.
Wow.
Gyan Babu was, he had a terrific ability to analyze the minds of great musicians.
Wow.
And that I benefited a lot being in his presence, not only learning a few compositions here and there, but more than that, analysis of the minds and thought process of great musicians. So whether it is Ustad Ahmad Jan Thirakwa, Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, Habibuddin Khan Sahab in tabla, or whether it is Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab or Fayyaz Khan Sahab or Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, and analyzing Amir Khan Sahab.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
So that I could imbibe.
okay.
I was able to imbibe all those discussions, and that all became part of my system and my
Wow.
growing up. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
these are the
Oh,
benefits I got in the presence of these people. Uh,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I have missed out about Amir Hussain Khan Sahab also,
Yeah.
although I saw a lot of him in my earlier childhood. Thirakwa Khan Sahab came a little later.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I was regularly interacting with Ustad Ahmad Jan Thirakwa, it was between 1964 and 67, starting then till his end in 1976. But Amir Hussain Khan Sahab passed away in 1969. So in the early 60s, when I was a child, he used to come very often to our home
Oh,
and stay sometimes for 15 days, 20 days, sometimes a 1 month. And since we used to really think as children that he was our grandfather, so we used to talk to him and play with him that way. He used to take us out to the park to play, and we were so close that as small children, maybe 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, used to run and race with each other, and then he would sit and watch, and then we would come to him for judgment, who stood first,
correct.
or and he was so close. I mean, we felt so close to him that we would even climb his shoulders.
Oh,
At that age,
yeah.
we didn't know he was a great maestro. We just knew he was our grandfather.
That's all.
Yeah, Ustad Amir
True.
Hussain Khan.
True. True.
So,
True. True.
that kind of nearness,
Wow.
and
Wow.
then as you grow, you realize, oh,
Oh,
this
correct.
person was a huge Himalayan mountain.
Yes. 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 True. Nayanji, I wanted to ask you because this question many people have asked me to ask you. And even here also, few people in the comments they have asked uh, how you felt that you wanted to play sitar also, because the first talim for you was tabla, if I am right, and
Tabla
then
and vocal, yeah,
vocal, tabla and vocal. So,
simultaneous, yeah.
so when did you feel, or how did it happen that you started learning sitar? And the question which most of the people have asked is, how could you master both? Because everyone say one life is not enough to master one art, but you are a living example who that you can master two arts in one lifetime. So how did that happen? I wanted to know how you came to sitar, and how did that start, and how you mastered the both.
The very first thing I will like to address is that uh, I don't believe I have mastered anything, because not just to display any humility or modesty, but as you age, as you grow, you begin to know how deep the ocean is, and then you realize you're still on the shore, and many people have given similes like that, but no, there's no question of mastering. But I'll tell you how I learned the sitar. It was around the age of 10 or 11. There were a few sitars in our home, because the institute Sangeet Mahabharati, now known as our Sangeet Mahabharati, was earlier known as Arun Sangeetalaya. And the classes used to run in our home itself. That was the premises
In
in the
Khar, if
early,
I'm not.
in Khar, in Bombay, Khar, yes, where our home would turn in the evening into an institute. So we lost our main living room, maybe to an office, and one of the bedrooms would become a classroom, proper classroom, and it would never have signs of being that it was a bedroom during the day. Or we had two bedrooms, so
Okay.
all that turned. So we used to go to our neighbor's house to study for
Okay.
our next day school. So the whole our home used to absolutely transform into an institution. So there were classes, and so there were a few sitars. I fell in love with one of the sitars, just strumming it, and began to like it. I used to, since you are a musician's child, then it's very natural that you are able to tune an instrument well. That's It has to come naturally. I never had anybody else to tune my tablas or my sitar ever in my life. I tuned my own instruments since my childhood. So I started playing a little casually in the beginning, but my love for sitar started getting deeper and very rapidly.
Oh,
And my father noticed that, yeah. And occasionally my father just guided me by saying, because my father had in-depth knowledge of sitar. He had tremendous knowledge. I mean, of course, being a vocalist, Ragdari was there. But more than that, the technique of sitar, how to place your fingers, how to strike. Uh, he was an amazing person. When he talked about sitar, or when he discussed sitar, you couldn't believe that he was actually a tabla player or a vocalist. You thought he was 100% sitar player. His knowledge was that deep. So occasionally he just showed me. He said, "No, no, 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 play this tan again." He would say, "Yeah, okay, now take a turn with the second finger," he said, or let's say he would say, "Okay, don't throw the second finger there. Continue with the first finger, and now put the second finger." Or
oh.
there is a da and the ra stroke. Then he would say, "Okay, at that point, give a double da and then come back," something like that. Dara dara da dara da dara dara, for example.
Uh,
So these things he started giving me tips here and there, but just by listening to my casual playing. And that went deeper and deeper, and then he taught me exclusive guts and gut compositions, and in-depth alap. he taught me,
Wow.
because alap is something that my grandfather specialized in. And my father always felt that it's a hallmark of our family, good alap playing. Because after all, any musician is judged about his standard from the alap rendition more than anything else. Okay, so he took care to see and that I have understood the spirit of the rag, maybe a Drupad approach, maybe a Khayal approach, you know. And where Tumri is concerned, of course, Khamaj, Bhairavi and all that, the Tumri approach, Kafi and all that, that also very important. But take a rag like Jajavanti, Bihag, Malkaus,
Wow.
that the Drupad approach to it is what he laid stress on. And in the process, he told me, okay, this is the alap, this is the jod alap, this is the gamak, this is the guthao, this is the ladi, this is the ladant, this is the thok, this is the tarparan, this is the jhala. Because, you know, traditionally in Beenkar alap, there used to be 12 stages of alap, 12 elements. I won't say stages, I'll say 12 elements of in alap. So these are some of them: ladi, lad, ladant, lad guthao, you know, thok, tarparan, jhala, and all that. So in the process, he saw to it that these elements were also covered in the alap training that he gave me. Plus, to further strengthen that, once he invited a great guru, the king of Gauripur, uh, Kumar Bahadur Birendra Kishore Rai Chaudhary, who was much senior to my father in age, and it was in his court that there were musicians like Inayat Khan Sahab, you know,
Oh.
Vilayat Khan Sahab's father,
Yes, yes.
Muhammad Amir Khan Sahab, Buddhadev Das Gupta ji's grand guru, Radhika Mohan Moitra's guru.
Guru.
And they were all in his darbar, and he had extensive talim from many great Saini maestros, from the direct descendants of Tansen. He had in-depth training, and he was an expert in Rudravina, Sursingar, and Rabab, all the three.
Oh.
And he used to perform all the three. And he had, it is said, he had over 3,000 Drupads straight, all in his memory. It would just, you ask and
Oh
it
my
just
God.
comes out. And so to confirm those 12 stages, I also took some talim from him. And I'll tell you, it's such a matter of great fortune that I also got to learn a little bit from him. Because you know who also learned from him? Uh, Radhika Mohan Moitra ji,
That's right.
Buddhadev Das Gupta ji's guru,
Yes.
also learned from
Good.
him. Nikhil Banerjee also learned from him.
Oh.
And many others. I was very fortunate to also get some talim from him and some very good Drupad compositions. And he confirmed my all the 12 elements of the alap.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's becoming rare. Very few sitar players know it now. Meeta is on the line. You said
Yeah.
Meeta
Yeah.
Nag.
She is there. Yeah.
Her gharana specializes in this Drupad renditions and approach to alap, and
Yeah.
she has very ably learned it from her father, Manilal Nagji.
Manilal ji. Ji.
Yes, and so this Drupad, you know, another thing is, my father was equally good at Thumri, Dadra, Chaiti, Kajri.
Wow.
He taught me a lot of Thumri Dadras, very rare at compositions. And so the treatment, vocal wise and sitar wise, how it changes.
Wow.
So he used to always say ragas like Bhairavi, Khamaj, Kafi either has a Thumri treatment or has a Drupad treatment. Normally doesn't have Khayal treatment.
Correct.
है ना?
Correct.
So he taught, for example, Bhairavi sikhaya. So he would teach us the Drupad Bhairavi, Shuddha Bhairavi, and simultaneously also the Thumri approach to Bhairavi.
That means 7 notes and 12 notes, both.
Yes, 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 yes. So not only the notes, the whole approach,
Approach.
yeah, where to give or not to give a certain murki or a khatka.
Wow.
Certain areas, if you are doing bhairavi, for example, there is a murki that just happens to come naturally, unknowingly to you. But if you are treating it in the Drupad manner, then how to avoid the murki at that point, and what to do in its place.
Correct.
So these
Wow.
are this very barik, very fine things that he took care. And besides that, mm, my father always encouraged us to keep a very open mind and listen to all good music. He himself was a great fan of Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart.
Wow.
And since childhood, we grew up listening to a lot of
Listening.
Western classical music also.
Wow.
So, he saw to it that every day we listened a little bit to Western classical music.
Oh,
That brings in a sense of refinement.
correct.
Okay. Then also other kinds. If there is a good song, let's say a pop music or a rock song or an American country music song, if it's appealing, he used to enjoy himself, and we all used to sit together and enjoy listening to it. East European folk music, Bulgarian, Romanian,
Oh,
Russian, also the folk music of Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, all these places, and Persian music. Arabic music, I'll not say it is so developed as Persian. Persian is a whole entire musical civilization, just like Hindustani music. There is a musical civilization, a musical culture. Um, Persian music, Iranian music, the maqam theory, and how we used to add, and we used to have a radio transistor
hmm.
till 11 o'clock. Anywhere you move the radio, you always get some Indian radio station at night. Okay,
Yeah,
after
correct.
11 most of the stations close down, but 11 to 12 Urdu service is there.
Huh.
Huh.
Correct.
And
Correct.
sometimes you get Lahore radio also, so you get good, in those days, I'm talking in my childhood, getting to listen to even good concerts by my father's friends, Salamat Ali, Nazakat Ali, or
Kalali.
Amanat Ali Fateh Ali, Roshanara Begum, and all. Then after 12 till 12:30 or till 1 o'clock, we used to listen to Kabul radio.
Oh.
Yeah. And Kabul radio used to not only give classical music by Muhammad Sarhang and others, but also some good rabab players, Kabuli rabab.
Hmm.
After that, after 1 o'clock, from 1 to 2, 2:30, we used to listen to Tehran radio.
Oh, Iranian.
And beautiful Persian music, maqam
Oh,
music, because all other stations had closed down, so the transmission was clear. So that was also something till late night, till 2 or 3 in the night, very often,
oh,
almost daily. I used to listen to a lot of Persian music also. It
wow,
helped
wow,
in my understanding and appreciation of beautiful sound, uh, you know,
wow,
and
wow.
uh, and it
Yeah.
it later on helped, because as I let's say in my age between in the 40s and 50s, when I was in that age bracket, I interacted with a lot of collaborated with a lot of musicians from other musical cultures. So that childhood hearing had helped me a lot to collaborate with them.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Nayanji, in this here, something brings to my mind is that uh, I personally I have not seen Nikhilji, Panditji, but through you, what you are saying, and what talim you had, and what musician you are, and what a persona you are, I can make out how he was, because I mean, we tell you that you are mass. You have got so much of hold over two instruments. But when we talk about Nikhilji, he was like, kind of a universe, a music universe, or you can say an encyclopedia, because uh, as what you were saying, that he had command over thumri, khayal, and instruments, sitar also, I mean tabla obviously, and
Sarangi also, my brother. A lot of,
sarangi.
almost all my brothers, Sarangi is my father's talim.
Yeah. So, and one more thing, what I found very interesting in your family is your uncle was one of the. I mean, he was the father of Indian flute. I mean, Hindustani flute,
Mm.
and your father was so many instruments and vocal music. You are into tabla and sitar, and your brother was into sarangi. Your sister is a
Singer,
vocalist.
vocal.
Yeah, so I mean, your house, it is. I think, as I said in the beginning, I mean, except music, I think nothing happened in your place, if I'm not mistaken.
We had all kinds of things. It was a very, very comprehensive, very wholesome growth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Music, musically wholesome,
yeah.
academically also. My
Okay,
mother was very learned, and she was very instrumental in our being good at studies also. And
correct.
sports, my father was a very good sportsman also. He was an
Oh,
excellent, outstanding football player. And
oh,
there is a lot of martial arts that he learned from his older brother Pannalal Ghoshi. And Pannalal Ghoshi was a great expert in martial arts. He was a boxing champion, he was a wrestling champion, he was a black belt jiu-jitsu and
oh,
lathi fighting, boxing. So these are few of the martial arts. One or two of them my father taught me also. Lathi
oh,
fighting, for example.
lovely.
and and a little bit of boxing also. Yeah,
I hope you
that.
don't use it now.
So these are things. A little bit when we were young, my father saw to it that we grow up with in a wholesome manner.
Yeah,
So
correct.
sports.
Yeah.
He himself was not much fond of cricket, but I loved cricket very much. And football, of course. When I and all my friends used to play, sometimes he would just come in his banyan and lungi,
Ah,
and he would just come and show certain techniques of kicking and dodging.
oh, oh, lovely.
And a master football player, and all the
Wow.
boys trying to snatch the ball from him just couldn't. He would dodge them so well.
Wow, क्या बात है. Very, very interesting to listen to listen about Pandit ji. There is one question which I also wanted to ask, but there is a question which has come from a young tabla player from Bangalore, Sumit Nayak. Can you throw some light on talim for tabla accompaniment with Kathak dance, especially from the Nikas perspective? This was one even I wanted to know about, even the, I mean, accompaniment as a whole, not just
Yeah,
for the Kathak, but for the instrumental, for vocal.
yeah, sure. uh, Especially since the question has come about dance. First of all, a tabla player has to be very tayar in various aspects, various bowls. Okay. Execution should come in split second. Whatever comes to his mind must also be executed at the same time. That is one. The other thing is, in Kathak, the Kathak dancer, most of the repertoire, they first recite and then they perform
Perform.
it with the feet. Okay. When they recite, that's your only chance. So your ability to understand the shape, the format of that composition, if not all the bowls, you may not be able to pick up all the bowls, but at least it's a structure. You have to be so attentive, you get hold of that. And then when the dancer is performing, you have to watch the feet of the dancer, and what you just listened, the recitation, that you have to align with the feet what of the dancer, and you have to execute it simultaneously with the Kathak dance. I have played a little bit with Kathak dance also, and I know what kind of mind you have to set up, that you have to create for yourself. to be able to play with Kathak dance. So Kathak dance, it is not always necessary that you have to know many Kathak compositions, because sometimes good Kathak dancers may not rehearse. Well, if you rehearse once or twice, fine, but that's another story. But ability to play even without rehearsal in Kathak dance, not talking about other forms, vocal music, instrumental music. I'm talking about Kathak dance. At least one round of rehearsal helps. But if there is no rehearsal, then also one should be able to successfully execute that. So the attention span has to be so strong, the focus, when listening to the recitation and when accompanying immediately, watching the feet and synchronizing your strokes with the feet.
Wow.
This is for Kathak.
Hmm.
As far as accompanying with the instrumental music and vocal music is concerned, at least I have never rehearsed with anybody. That concept, since I belong to the old school, I didn't like the idea of rehearsing, because after all, when you go on the stage, the artist is playing maybe something else,
True.
according to the mood of that moment. So you have to be, one has to, as a tabla accompanist, completely understand the mood of the artist, the mood of the spirit of the rag, the style of that gharana,
Wow.
accompanying, for example, the kinar stroke. Let's say just teen tal,
Hmm.
kinar stroke with sitar or sarod will be different from one if you're accompanying with santoor.
Correct.
One, volume level also. The thickness of the sound has to vary according to the instrument. Now, talking about vocal music, if I am accompanying a Kirana singer or a Patiala singer, my theka, my baya modulation, and my kinar and sur strokes will be one. And if I'm playing with a Gwalior or Agra style, it will be different. The same
Oh,
dha will be different. The nikas, the sound will have to be different. That is Gharana wise. Sometimes with the singer also, because you see, we say Kirana, but Kirana also has so many shades.
true.
There is the Abdul Wahid Khan Saab's lineage Kirana, which is,
Yeah.
Ustad Fayaz Niyaz Ahmad Khan Saab, for example. If you're accompanying them, or Mashkur Bhai, there's a different andaz of playing the theka. And if you're playing in the Bhimsenji style, it's different.
Correct.
Those who are singing in that style, there the nikas is different. Uh, so there's so many things you have to keep in mind. I mean,
True.
the
Yeah.
style, the mood of the artist, the mood of the rag, and
Very true.
of course, it's very important that a tabla player should have sufficient knowledge of ragdari.
Wow.
All earlier tabla players were excellent vocalists. Ahmad Jan Thirakwa Khan Sahab, Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, my father,
Yeah.
Shamta Prasad ji, Allah Rakha ji, all of them had sound knowledge of vocal music, and they were able singers also. So it is
Wow.
very important that a tabla player has to be not only knowledge of rag, but has to be also a fairly good vocalist.
क्या बात है?
It is very important. It is very
क्या
important.
बात?
Then
क्या
you
बात?
can accompany melodic, whether vocal or sitar or tabla or whatever instrument, flute. You can accompany in a far superior manner, in a far more refined manner, if you
Wow.
are yourself a good vocalist. If you're not a good vocalist, it shows, and not everybody can see that.
Correct.
There are few musicians who can see the difference. ठेके से
True.
पता चलता है इनको गाना आता है, कितना
आता
आता
है?
है या नहीं आता है, वो
वाह!
ठेके से पता चलता है.
क्या बात है? क्या बात है? Very true. Very true. I think we have one of the best vocal accompanists of our times, Bharat Kamatji, here with us. He is conveying his pranams to you, and very true. What you are saying is, vocal music knowledge has to be there for a good accompanist, especially
I
for
will go
vocal.
to the extent that my father used to say, even I believe strongly,
Hmm.
तुम तबलिया हो या कुछ भी हो, जब गाओगे तो गाना ऐसा लगना चाहिए कि गवैया गा रहा है,
हाँ हाँ, क्या बात है।
ऐसा नहीं कि कोई शौकिया गा रहा है.
करेक्ट।
You know what I mean? You should sound like a proper gavaiya when you're singing.
वाह।
तो ये बहुत important है. Then only your tabla is complete. It's round. It's musically totally coated. The
करेक्ट।
tabla has to be musical.
यस।
Here again, I'll say my standard sentence. Tabla is one percussion instrument that goes beyond percussion. There is a lot of music that can be created with tabla.
वाह। वेरी
Music,
ट्रू।
a musical experience
वेरी ट्रू।
with the sound, where a listener will be transported from the percussive sounds, the beats, into a different level of musical experience. At
वाह।
the end of a good solo, or even in the not only end, I mean in the middle, what I'm saying, a good solo should make there should be a big portion. See what happens when people listen to tabla solo. People are sitting on the edge of the seat.
करेक्ट।
What I mean is there's so much of excitement they're looking forward to, and there is speed, there is power, there is at times beating the tabla also. Amir Khan sahab used to say, एक होता है बजाना, एक होता है पीटना, एक होता है गाना,
क्या बात।
एक होता है चिल्लाना.
वाह।
और आमिर खान साहब बोलते थे, एक होता है नाचना और एक होता है कूदना.
क्या
तो
बात है।
यू हैव टू
वाह।
नो द डिफरेंस. तो
करेक्ट।
तबले में ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है कि वो ऐसा मजा आ जाए कि बजाने वाले सुनने वाले सबको एक नशा आ जाए.
हाँ हाँ, क्या बात है।
जो बहुत अच्छा गाना सुनने के बाद जो मन का स्थिति होता है,
जी।
वो स्थिति तबले से भी होना चाहिए, होता है, अगर
क्या
कोशिश
बात।
करे तो होता है. So it is tabla is not necessarily leaves you only with excitement and awe, but it also takes you into a state of intoxication, and that is what every tabla player must strive.
क्या
Then
बात
only
है।
I'll say he's a complete tabla player,
वाह।
because he has produced music through his tabla, not
क्या
only
बात है।
percussion.
वाह। वाह। वेरी 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 ट्रू। वेरी ट्रू। Nayan ji, very true. There is one question which I would like to take from he's Rahul Patak. He's from USA. Can you please talk about tabla gharana versus baj? How much the
Sure,
baj have to change in order to become its own gharana?
sure. Though it's a very big subject,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Often I give lecture demonstrations on this topic also. But in brief, there is nothing called gharana in tabla. It is purely only baj. Gharana word is applicable to vocal music, sitar, other subjects. In tabla, it is baj. In ancient sitar, also there was baj. Masid Khani baj and Raza Khani baj. There was only baj. Of course, then the gharanas came. But in sitar, in tabla, it is baj only. There is nothing called gharana.
Oh.
Oh, it out of a habit, people have started using the term gharana in tabla. So there is Delhi baj, because all tabla is all about nikas. It is all about the technique used. So the technique of Delhi Ajrada is one. The technique of Purab, which means Lucknow, Farrukhabad, and Banaras, is different. The technique for Punjab is different. There are 6 gharanas in tabla.
Yes.
And the nikas, हाथ का रख रखाव, which part of the finger are you playing this kinar with? You're playing with the index finger, but which part of the index finger are you using for the kinar sound? That also varies from baj to baj.
Okay.
Of course, any tabla player needs to know, first of all, ये जो बाज आया कहाँ से आया, क्यों आया, which means now I'm using the word gharana for easy understanding of the viewers. But first gharana, Delhi gharana, okay, Delhi baj. Just the earliest name we find is Mia Siddhar Khan Dhadi, earliest recorded name. 3 generations after him. Now I can give you the names of all the generations in the middle, but let's not waste time. The 3 generations after him, there were 3 brothers, Makku Khan Sahab, Bakshu Khan Sahab, and Modu Khan Sahab. Makku Khan Sahab continued in Delhi. Bakshu Khan Sahab and Modu Khan Sahab migrated to Lucknow uh, because of political disturbance in Nadir Shah had attacked Delhi, and there was a lot of genocide. So they left, migrated, they fled to Lucknow, where the atmosphere was very peaceful and a lot of musical culture was there. But there was a lot of Pakhawaj and Kathak dance. So they found that the Delhi tabla with the kinar and do ungli ka baaj. Here again, I'll do a little clarification. Some people have over understood do ungli ka baaj. Do unglis, it just means regarding tete, for example. Tete played in other Purab style is tete with 3 fingers and like that. And tete in Delhi, Ajrad is this. But people have over understood. Now they play terekete also like that. Terekete like that. It happens from over understanding or over definition also. So there, the volume and power required to match Kathak dance or Pakhawaj, they had to bring in more things. So the use of palm, the use of sur sound, the thicker sounds, heavier, bolder sounds were brought into tabla. That is how Lucknow came into the scene. From Lucknow, there were immediately next 1 generation later, there were 2 gharanas that were born. One was Farrukhabad, one was Banaras. Now, Farrukhabad, the founder was the son-in-law and disciple of that Lucknow founder Bakshuji, Haji Vilayat Ali Khan Sahab, Haji Sahab. Now, Haji Sahab was affected kind of by the criticism by Delhi people who said that tabla was not pure anymore. There were so many elements of Kathak and Pakhawaj which came in, and therefore tabla is now messed up. So he was a very talented composer of his time, gigantic composer. He composed a whole new world of repertoire where he used the fine bowls of Delhi and the heavy bowls of Lucknow, but no influence of Pakhawaj and Kathak. Pure tabla. So Farrukhabad, that is the reason Farrukhabad Baj was born. Meantime, Banaras Ram Sahaji was a disciple of Modu Khan Sahab. He learned the Lucknow and the style, and then when he went back to Banaras, he gave further thought to it, and Banaras had its own musical culture, very rich. So, to get that mizaj of the Banarasi mizaj into the tabla, he made further modifications, and his descendants later made further modifications. So a different Baj, Banaras Baj, was born. In the meantime, Ajrada was just a, a branch of Delhi. There are certain technical differences, but why there are 2 different gharanas? They are almost twin gharanas.
Okay.
But I won't go into too many details right now. I can, but we'll lose a lot of time. So that is about the Baj of tabla and Punjab also. Punjab Baj is fairly, I'll say Punjab has a long history of Pakhawaj tradition. And the tabla tradition is only about 3-4 generations old now. Right now, 4 generations. Because Ustad Allah Rakhaji's guru, Mian Qadir Baksh, and his father, Mian Fakir Baksh, he was the first to bring a new world of tabla into the otherwise Pakhawaj tradition. So there also a lot of thought, beautiful compositions, unusually beautiful and vigorous, very powerful compositions.
Wow.
And there's a lot of mathematical angles also to it. So the Punjab also came about, and that is how we have tabla 6 gharanas.
Yeah.
Baj.
Yeah. Uh, I would like to ask, since we are almost 1 hour 10 minutes, I would like to ask one or two questions in the
Sure,
as the last two questions.
sure.
I would like to. There are many people who are many artists again, like Kalpana Zokarkarji is here. Uh, Abhishek Lahiri, a very good
Yeah,
young sarod player
Sarod.
from yeah, and Nandini Chakrabarti, she is here. Someone from West Indies, Madan Prem Makun, he has from Trinidad. He has conveyed his pronouns to you. So many people have joined us. One thing which people always expect you to play whenever you play a tabla solo or whenever you accompany a Thumri concert is the laggi part, because it's one of the, I think you are, I mean, I can say it as, tradition of Nikhilji. Uh,
Yes,
it's so different, and uh, it has so much of I mean, I'm not a very good I'm not trained in tabla, but the variations of the volumes when you play certain things,
yes.
वो एक नजाकत बोलते हैं ना, even in
Mm.
that speed, in that luggy speed, where we are, it's been played at a very high speed,
Yeah.
and in that speed also you bring out so much of nazakat, not just the the speed and the force. It's not always the force which comes, as you
Yes,
say, bajana
definitely.
or pitna.
Pitna.
So can you tell a little bit about that luggis part?
Yes, yes, yeah. Now, first of all, since childhood, as I told you some time back, that my father trained me also in Thumri, Dadra, Kajri, and all that.
Yeah,
So, in the course of the talim, he would himself sometimes take the pair of tabla and show how the laggi has to start,
yeah.
from which point the laggi comes into the scene, and how you have to go through the different stages of laggi.
Wow.
Laggi also has to be played in stages.
Correct.
um, this is, I'm informing more for the present day tabla players, the younger ones also.
Yes.
There are stages. You can't straight away start flying with luggis. You have to go through various stages. Now, uh, this practice of playing luggi at the end of a solo was started by me,
Oh,
and not very long back. In 2003, I was playing a tabla solo in Kolkata, ITCSRA's
yeah.
annual
That is
program.
there on YouTube. That
It
that
is
clip
there on
is on
YouTube,
YouTube.
and
Yes.
then it was on the request of several musicians sitting in front.
Yes.
You know, my colleagues, my contemporaries were there, vocalists like Pandit Ajay Chakravarti, Mashkur Bhai, Ullas ji,
Hmm.
and Rashid, and others were all there. So, so there was a request from there. Anindo Bhai was also there, thoda, some luggis. And so I played that luggi. And now I like to see that many tabla players finish their solo and there are requests for luggis and they end with a round of luggis, which is good in a way, um, just to bring about that typical, you know, uh, what one feels like listening to Thumri after a khayal, just like that, playing luggi at the end of a solo. But Uh, your question is about the different dynamics used in a laggi. Nazakat is one thing. Of course, tayari has to be there because laggis are always played at very fast speed.
Yes.
And different laggi has a different, uh, it highlights, it enhances the Thumri song. But laggi as a solo was never played before. It
Correct.
started with me. It started with me.
True.
Uh, but laggi, when one plays, as I said, there are different stages. Then there are a few many laggis are played. There is an ulat and there is a palat
Hmm.
in a laggi. You invert the
That
design.
Yes.
starting point changes, and you further invert it again. So there are total 3 stages: the laggi, the ulat, the palat.
Uh,
There are many laggis which can be played that way. And very important is how you open the baya and close the baya. खुला और बंद कौन सी जगह पे? The laggi for bhajan will be different. The laggi for Thumri Dada will be different.
different.
Just the same laggi, right hand goes on same pattern, but the baya खुला बंद भजन के साथ एक होगा और ठुमरी दादरा के साथ दूसरा होगा. And the laggis for ghazal is totally different. That structure itself is different. So talking about laggi, बायां कहाँ खुलना चाहिए,
Wow.
वो बहुत important है. Then you get the flavor of that thumri enhanced or that bhajan. The uthan in a laggi for thumri is different from the uthan in a bhajan.
Yes.
These things a tabla player needs to know. That is why a tabla player has to be a good vocalist.
Wow.
Then he will know exactly कहाँ से कौन सा लगी लेके उठना
Wow.
और कहाँ खुला बंद होना चाहिए, कहाँ और कौन सी पॉइंट से उलट पलट होगा. बीच बीच में चांटी यूज होता है, इसीलिए लग्गी को कहते हैं लग्गी चांटी. ट्रेडिशनली लग्गी चांटी बोलते हैं. आजकल महाराष्ट्र में लग्गी नाड़ा बोलने लगे हैं, ये गलत बात है. और नाड़ा वो बोल आया धादी नाड़ा से.
हाँ.
दादी नाड़ा दादी नाड़ा दादी नाड़ा दादी नाड़ा, ठीक है, वहां से वो नाड़ा वर्ड आ गया. बट अदरवाइज लग्गी नाड़ा कभी हमने पहले नहीं सुना. इतने खासाबों को, इतने अच्छे अच्छे उस्तादों को, तबला के उस्ताद पंडितों को देखा सुना, कभी ये शब्द हमने नहीं सुना. लग्गी चाटी. चाटी कहाँ फेंकना. चाटी
क्या
है इज
बात.
दैट स्ट्रोक, जिसको आजकल थाप थाप बोलते हैं. आजकल थाप बोलते हैं, तो
जी.
थाप नहीं, उसका करेक्ट वर्ड इज चाटी. तो चाटी को कहाँ फेंकना, उसकी भी जगह है.
वाह.
अच्छा, अभी ये हुआ लगी, चलो चाटी बोला तो एक मुझे और चीज याद आ गया. चाटी इन अ सोलो परफॉर्मेंस भी होता है. व्हेन यू फिनिश अ कायदा यू कम बैक टू अ ठेका. वो भी चाटी बजाने का एक तमीज होता है. देयर इज अ तमीज बिहाइंड दैट. जब बड़े सामने होते हैं चाटी नहीं बजाना चाहिए. When there are senior musicians sitting in front, one should not throw the thap. Never. Unless you are acknowledged, you may be younger, but you are acknowledged as one of the very top maestros. Yeah. So there is a tamiz element also.
वाह.
हाथ कितना उठाना, हाथ बजाने के टाइम कितना सा उठाना, ये भी तमीज के अंदर आता है. आजकल तिहाई मार के जैसे ऊपर हाथ ऐसे ऊपर कर देते हैं ना, लास्ट का तिहाई, और फोटोग्राफर को भी बोल के रखते हैं उस टाइम निकालने के लिए फोटो. ये बहुत गलत चीज है. ये तमीज के बाहर की चीज है. नंबर 1. नंबर 2, लिसनर का भी तमीज होना चाहिए. दैट इज, कभी जो सुनने वाले हैं वो कभी उंगली दिखा के तारीफ नहीं करनी चाहिए. आर्टिस्ट की तरफ उंगली दिखा के बोलते हैं आहा हा हा हा, ऐसा ये कभी नहीं होना चाहिए. उंगली कभी नहीं दिखाना चाहिए. हाथ भी दिखाना. यंगर पर्सन कैन नॉट डू टू ए सीनियर आर्टिस्ट. हाथ उनके तरफ मुंह करके हाथ करके कहना आहा हा हा क्या बात. ये बड़ों के, छोटा बड़े के नहीं कर सकते हैं, बड़े कर सकते हैं छोटे
जी.
ये छोटी छोटी बातें हैं.
जी. जी. बहुत.
देयर इज एटिकेट, परफॉर्मिंग एटिकेट, लिसनिंग एटिकेट आल्सो.
वाह. वाह.
ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. हाँ,
ये बहुत ही आपने बहुत एक वेरी वेरी माइन्यूट टॉपिक यू हैव टच्ड अबाउट दिस.
और एक तमीज की जब बात चल रही है, तिहाई बहुत बजना नहीं चाहिए. तिहाई की जगह है, उसका एक इम्पोर्टेंस है, वो उतना ही बजे. लाइन से आप अगर तिहाई बजा रहे हैं, चाहे आप तबले में भी बोल रहे हैं, मैं तबले का ही बात कर रहा हूँ, एक के बाद एक तिहाई सुना रहे हैं, या सितार बजा रहे हैं, तिहाई के बाद तिहाई बजा रहे हैं, वो भी रटे हुए हैं. ये चीजें पुराने लोग एनकरेज नहीं करते थे, डिस्करेज करते थे. बोलते थे नहीं बेटा, राग बजाओ, तान उपज का बजाओ, तिहाई हर बार बजाना है ऐसा कोई जरूरी नहीं है. एक आध आ गया तिहाई आमद वो बात अलग है, और आखिर में खत्म करने का टाइम तिहाई जरूर बजाओ। तो
I think
तिहाई,
this can be applied even to some vocalists also.
यस यस,
Too much of Tihai,
एब्सोल्युटली,
yeah,
तिहाई। And another beautiful thing is happens nowadays is singing tihais and finishing just before the mukda and catching the mukda
uh,
of the song
hmm,
or the gad, or in expecting tabla player also to finish the tabla exactly on that beat and then start the theka from that point, which is
correct,
also a nice trend. It is a nice trend. Um, it's a mathematical game, and it tickles the mind.
correct.
It tickles the mind. It encourages the musician to perform that way also. It's a nice new trend, but it shouldn't be overdone, because then what is the importance of sum is there already kept for your tihai.
Yeah,
तो इसीलिए कभी कभी सम पे भी आना चाहिए, सम का मजा लेना चाहिए।
true, true, true. बहुत
द
बहुत सही कहा
प्रोपोर्शन
आपने.
द प्रोपोर्शन शुड बी नोन। एकाध
Yes,
तिहाई इधर उधर फेंक के फिर वहां से मुखड़ा पकड़ लिया, एकाध ठीक है,
जी जी, very very
हर
very
बार,
true. जी
हर
जी,
बार नहीं।
हाँ
ठीक है,
जी,
वो कभी कभी a musician gets carried away because there is an appreciation for that kind of a skill, and
yeah,
then only one should know not to overdo it, that's all. Do
yes
it,
yes,
but don't overdo it.
correct. वो कोई भी बात को ओवरडू करने से इट लूजेस इट्स इम्पोर्टेंस, और इट
Similarly,
लूजेस इट्स.
हाँ, तबला बजाने में भी उतना जोर जोर से मार मार के नहीं बजाना चाहिए। क्यों? जो 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 कुछ बोल होते हैं जो जोर से बजाना जरूरी है, पर जोर से बजाना डज नॉट मीन you should see that you are almost attacking, assaulting the tabla. That should never happen. It should never appear like you are assaulting the instrument.
वाह,
The instrument is your friend. You have grown up with it.
यस
It's not only friend, it's your lover.
यस,
So you have to treat it with that care and affection.
और मे बी इट्स आपकी वो पहचान है.
Huh?
Because of that instrument, your name is,
Yeah,
people have
yeah.
come to listen to. So very very true, Nayanji. I think I mean, I'm really having a great learning session today, talking to you. I think last one question I will take, because I think we are quite late now. It's almost 1 hour, one and a
Well,
half
if
hours
there is,
almost.
I have no problem with time. Since we are discussing good subjects, it's in
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
interest of the entire music community.
Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, we can go on and on, because I wanted to tell something, that Panditji Nikhil Ghosh ji has done encyclopedia in music. He has created an encyclopedia which is there in Sangeet Mahabharati, which I have seen. But I feel that he has created an encyclopedia in 1956 itself, and its name is Pt.Nayan Ghosh. I
Arey
truly
nahi.
believe you are an encyclopedia of music. I mean, there is no doubt.
Thank
Nobody
you.
can deny this, because you are so much knowledge. Uh, I mean, you have so much knowledge, not just about the music itself, the history, the musicians, I mean, the generations. I mean, 3, 4, 5 generations prior to your generation. So, I mean, it's really amazing. One last question I want to ask you, so that you can guide the youngsters who are listening to this, irrespective of whether they are vocalists, tabla,
Yeah, yeah,
instrumentalists, anyone. This is a question from one of the viewers today. Why young learners are falling for performance without having good talim and riyas? How to convince them?
one thing, they are young. They're too young. So that requires a mature thinking. And talim and riyaz are your very weapons. You are going to the battlefield, and if you are not equipped, how are you going to fight the battle? So what you
Yes,
need is solid talim. You need to be fully armed. And riyaz, a performance is like a battlefield. It's an arena. You go there, you cannot come back, and you stay there. Not only one battle, 100 battles you will have to win. So you will have to be very well equipped with talim and riyaz, and
Wow.
otherwise there is a danger of failing and losing that battle. And that is very easy. It's very easy to lose a battle. It's very difficult to win a battle.
True.
And so one has to be extremely well prepared. Jisko kehte hain na, you have to be armed to the teeth. That is why, in my case, I'll tell you, my father did not allow me to play too many public concerts at an early age.
Wow.
Though I was, by God's grace, talented and gifted, and I was ready. But he said, nothing doing, not now. That time will come. Doesn't matter if it is late. Because he always believed that your go down should be fully equipped.
Wow.
And then you go out on the stage. Go out on the stage to perform. Because once performing starts, then one performance leads to another one leads to the third leads to the fourth. This way what happens is, then you will not find time for learning and doing riyaz anymore. That is why invest a whole lot into your talim and riyaz, so that just with the interest of that you can win a battle.
Wow.
It's an
Wow.
investment, and they just only that tiny interest, know what I mean,
Yes.
interest, like banking, that is enough to win the battle.
True. Wow. Wow. Very, very true. Nayanji, I think we had a
And how to
great.
convince young people, listen, that
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
question on how to convince young people,
Yeah.
there's no need to convince. वो जब अगर वो समझा नहीं, वो जब मैदान में जाके मार खाएगा तब समझ में आएगा, उसका दिमाग खुलेगा तब.
True. 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 And one more thing, last I wanted to ask you, because you were telling about the Tamiz part earlier. Uh, One of the best thing I have seen you, as well as even Ishan also. Ishan is too young now, but both of you I have observed whenever I come to your tabla concert, that whatever is the speed you are playing, your facial expression doesn't change. Because I have seen many tabla players making lot of facial expression when they play uh, the solo or something, or whenever they are playing in a speed at a higher speed. What do you have to say about it
Nice
regarding the
question.
facial expression?
Nice question. This, of course, depends on the very foundation of your talim and your method of practice. It's very important. Traditionally,
Hmm.
it was always considered in tabla that
Hmm.
only your wrist, only your from the wrist to the fingertips should move. That is why
Hmm.
you will see. Luckily, we have videos of Ustad Ahmad Jan Terekwa. You
Hmm.
see how he executes the bowls. They are very tough, but the way he has practiced with, and that finally executes them with so much ease. And you see there is no excessive body movements, no head movements, no facial expressions, distortions, only the hands and finger. And those bowls, let me tell you, even today many tabla players cannot execute those bowls. That's because he has shown how easy it is. So people think it is easy. It's not like that. Traditionally, dosh mudra dosh bolte hain.
Ah.
So these things, they were discouraged. Now there are, those giants are not there to stand up in the front of the stage and say, stop it, ये क्या कर रहे हो तुम. अभी वैसे उस्ताद भी नहीं है जो रोक सकते
जी.
हैं, टोक सकते हैं.
जी.
और दूसरी बात यह है कि आप बजाने के टाइम या गाने के टाइम, अभी देखिए, if you try to show that what you are playing is very difficult, there are
Hmm.
so many young tabla players I see nowadays who play the most easy things, but expression that it is very difficult just to get claps. That's all, just to show that they are doing a very tough and difficult thing. But this will not lead them. बहुत आगे बहुत दूर नहीं जाएंगे ये लोग, जो
True.
those who fall into this trap. वो कुछ दिन के आर्टिस्ट हैं, बाद में वो they get lost.
Correct.
Now, what is important, because they have not grown with proper values,
Yes.
and तो समझाने वाले कोई है नहीं. और दूसरी बात है कि देखो, गाना फॉर एग्जांपल पंडित जगदीश प्रसाद को लो, उस्ताद बड़े गुलाम अली खान साहब को लो, उस्ताद अमीर खान साहब को लो, जब ये
Yes.
गाते हैं तो मुश्किल से मुश्किल तान, देयर इज नो एक्सप्रेशन, इट्स
Yes.
जस्ट इजी. और तिहाई भी ऐसे आता है जैसे कि ये आना था आ गए,
आ गया
कौन सी
बस.
बड़ी बात है. आना था आ गए,
Yes.
कौन सी बड़ी बात है.
वाह.
ये
वाह.
ये बड़े गुलाम अली खान साहब और पंडित जगदीश प्रसाद जी का खास मैं बोल रहा हूँ, क्योंकि वो तिहाई भी बहुत खूबसूरत ढंग से गाते थे, और
जी.
ऐसे आते थे जैसे कि ये आना ही था, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं. इट इज एज इजी एज वाटर फ्लोइंग.
Yes.
So to dramatize that, sometimes musicians use excessive expressions,
जी.
widening of the eyes.
Yeah.
This is also dangerous.
True.
You are creating a fear psychosis.
True. True.
And
True.
और ऊपर नीचे या ऐसे करना, ये सब जरूरत नहीं है. जरूरत नहीं है.
जी.
अल्टीमेटली, आर यू कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू द आर्ट? आर यू टेकिंग इट टू अ हायर लेवल, or are you
Yes.
bringing it down just to please the public? It is our
Yes.
duty, every generation's duty, to lift the art to one step higher than what
Higher.
my generation did.
Wow. Wow.
Make it more refined, and
Yes.
don't make a circus out of it.
Wow. Wow.
Because making a circus is very easy. You get claps, you get applause, you get 10 more concerts.
Correct.
Because after all, who gives concerts? Corporates. And so these are people who don't understand music.
Yes.
But
Correct.
are you protecting, or are you damaging the art? Very important. What is your responsibility? So the
Yes.
sense of responsibility has to be constantly reminding you, stay within certain limits. Definitely a little bit of drama is necessary, fine, little bit, लेकिन वो graceful होना चाहिए.
Yeah.
डरावना नहीं होना चाहिए.
True. True. Very, very true. Nayan ji, I think there are
सबसे
already.
इम्पोर्टेंट, I'll finish with one thing. सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट, चाहे वो गवैया हो, सितारिया हो, तबलिया हो, जो सुर में डूब जाओ पहले. सबसे
हाँ
पहले
हाँ, क्या बात है. क्या
सुर में
बात है.
डूब जाओ.
क्या बात है.
अकेले में जब गाओगे बजाओगे, तुम्हारा एक सुर अगर तुम्हारे आंख से आंसू निकाल सके, जेन्युइन आंसू, तो समझ लो तुम्हारा सफल हुआ जिंदगी.
क्या
अकेले
बात
में
है.
जब गाओगे तब. तो
क्या
सुर
बात
में
है.
डूबना बहुत जरूरी है, वो पर प्रोग्राम में हो या अकेले में हो. देखो
वाह.
अली अकबर खान साहब ऐसे सुर में डूब के ऐसे लगाते थे, एक सुर लगाते थे, सीधा सारे लिसनर्स के दिल में ऐसा लगता था तीर लग गया.
Yes.
एक सुर.
वाह.
दैट टाइम घराना doesn't matter, grammar doesn't matter,
True.
ragdari doesn't matter. A
True.
pure sur, if it can pierce through your heart and touch your soul, that is music.
क्या बात है. वाह वाह. वाह. Wow. I mean, I have no words to say after this, because it was truly, truly, truly enriching session for everyone who have attended today, and whoever is going to watch this, because it will be on the Facebook. Nayanji, I have no words to thank you, because I am too young, too small in
अरे
front of you. You have been a great, great inspiration for many musicians of our generation and coming generation. It's truly my honor. I feel it's my privilege that you accepted my invitation, came here for and spent your valuable time with all of us, sharing your knowledge.
I want to appreciate you, because you took the whole discussion to a different level. Because I have had many online interviews, some of them excellent, some of them very mundane,
Yeah.
because it's not about what are your favorite hobbies, and which do you like to see movies, etc. It's not that kind of an interview. I liked because you are a good musician yourself. And I want to tell all the viewers that Dhananjay is one of those very genuine musicians upcoming. shouldn't say upcoming now anymore. You are quite an established musician, and you have also a deep musical experience. When I say
Thank you.
musical experience, I don't mean concert experience. I
Yeah.
mean experience of sound.
Wow.
Experience of concert is different. Experience of
Eh,
sound is different. Yeah.
yes. Yes.
जिसको
So thank.
अनुभव experience of concert and other things, they are anubhav. Experience
Yes.
of sound is anubhuti, realization.
हाँ क्या बात है वाह 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 Thank you so much, Nayanji. I have been blessed by you many times, and I keep, I hope that you keep on blessing me like this. And thank you so much for coming to today's session and inaugurating my second uh, session with such a insightful discussion. And everyone, whoever has come here, everyone is saying that one session is not enough with Nayanda. I think very, very true. One session
Let me
is
know whenever you, if you feel like having a second session. I'll be glad, because it's nothing, it's not to show off my whatever I know. No, it is to share, so that
definitely.
the musicians who are younger to me can learn from it and benefit from it. And
Yes,
after all, now that I'm whatever, I'm a senior musician, I'm 65 now, but at least if I can help the coming generation
true,
with proper values,
true,
that will be
true.
my humble contribution.
Yes, true, 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 true. Thank you so much, Nayanji. And thank you all my viewers today. Even Shailaja Khannaji has joined us from Delhi. So
Hello.
thank you so much. Thank you all viewers, and hope you keep on blessing me. Hope to meet you all next week with a new guest. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nayanji. Good night. Stay safe.
Good night. Good night.